Hello, my name is Doomraker and I'm a video editor at DOS Reviews, and this is going to be our preview showcase part 3 of 4 of the Protoss units. Instead of, last video was about the Terran, this one's going to be at the Protoss. And I'm going to also throw in some of the new features that they've added to Starcraft 2's multiplayer and probable single player that definitely changed the game. Like before, I'm going to start off with the buildings. Now, I did separate the buildings this time, and since the Protoss have a ton of buildings, I separated them by manufacturing buildings and the buildings that upgrade all your stuff, seeing how they have more of those than manufacturing. Now I'm going to start with the upgrades. First one is the Forge. This one does all the ground stuff, also does the shields for the Protoss. Cybernetics Core does the air weapons. The Twilight Council kind of replaces the original Twilight Council in terms of it only does 2 upgrades, Zealot Charge, which I'll show you in a moment, and the Stalker Blink, which I will also show you in a moment. This one is the Templar Archives. It makes it so you can make high Templars. This one is Dark Shrine. It doesn't do anything except for make it so you can make Dark Templars. This one's the Fleet Beacon. It looks exactly like the original one. This one makes it so you can make carriers and the mothership at your Nexus, which is one of the few buildings that actually became a producing building besides the SCVs. This is the robotics bay. All this does is it makes it so you can make the Colossi, which I'll show you in a moment, at the robotics factory. First one I'll show you is going to be the gateway. This is the basic gateway. Now there are 2 versions of the gateway and the warp gate. Now you can click on the gateway to click on it and turn it into a warp gate, which makes it so you can instantly warp in any unit at any time, anywhere that you have power. So instead of waiting for it to queue up and to build, you can just warp it in instantly. The next one that you have here is the Stargate. It basically makes air units from the Phoenixes to the Void Rays to the carriers. That's what you use to build the units. Lastly, there's the Robotics Factory. This is where they make the heavy armor for the Protoss. Anything after that, you pretty much just rinse and repeat on those 3, and all the upgrades come from the top structures. Now, why don't we go ahead and I'll show you real quick. Before I do the units, I'll show you some of the newer stuff in StarCraft. Height is a big thing. Basically, they take height to a serious accord. Everything is done. If you're on the top ground, you have the advantage. If you're on the lower ground, disadvantage. Also, they added these cool minerals. They're the gold minerals. Basically, what they are is that instead of getting 5 per mineral when you return them, you get 10. So you double your mineral input in matters of seconds. So, destroying these destructible rocks, which are what's stopping people from getting into my base. You also can destroy them to make a Nexus, land a command center, or even just build a hatchery right there to gain the extra minerals, and that also follows over for the Vespian geysers next to them. Now on to the units. We're going to start off with the ground ones. The ground ones, basic unit, the Zealot. Everybody knows them. They're still armed with their powerful side blades. They still blow everything up, anything on the ground. Next, we're going to go to the Sentries. These are a brand new Protoss unit that is kind of a mix of the Arbiter and kind of a shield generator. Not really used very much. I personally use them a lot, but past that, they do cool abilities. One is the Force Field, which I can encapsulate, kind of cut off like ramps so you can't get reinforcements, which is pretty cool. The other one is the Guardian Shield. Basically, all this does is it makes it so anything in those bubbles takes reduced damage for, I believe, 15 seconds. It does drain a lot of energy to do, but if you keep it up, it does help your ground units an astonishing amount. Next one I'll do is the Protoss Stalker. Basically, this is the replacement for the Dragoon. It's kind of like a Dark Dragoon. It does have a cool ability where you can blink a couple inches or a couple feet every 10 seconds. So you can actually, warp yourself on the other side of obstacles or anything like that. You can get yourself over. See, I can get myself right there. Now, like I said before, the Zealots did get a cool new ability. Instead of being able to move really fast, they charged their target to close ground, like this. So instead of, running really fast to chase targets, you just close distance really quick. The 2 other classic units that you're going to get are the High Templar, which still do Psystorm. Anything in that, including your own friendly units, will get blown up by that Psystorm. Also, Dark Archons make a return. They are pretty cool because they customize each individual one. This one's got a sword. This one's got a sort of scythe thing going on. And yes, they do meld into Archons. Now, I'm very sorry to say, but there are no Dark Archons. If you mix 2 Dark Templar, it just makes a standard Archon, which is this guy over here. Only really used when you run out of energy on your High Templars and you need an emergency unit quick. Then for the heavy armored units, we're going to go with the... Obviously, there's the Observer. I haven't built one because there's really no point. But they have the Observers. Same unit. Didn't change. Next one is going to be the Immortals. They're basically the counter to like the Terran Siege tanks or the Zerg Roaches. Anything to do a lot of damage. These suckers get a large shield that reduces the damage by a ton. So basically they're hard to kill by larger units. Smaller units like the Zealots or the Marines will instantly tear these guys apart. Warp Prisons are a cool new unit because they're a mix of a pylon and a shuttle that was in the original game. So you click this button and you make a power field. And in that power field you can use the warp gates to warp in units, that kind of stuff from anywhere in the map. So if you put one behind their base, you can warp in a bunch of Zealots, wreak havoc. The next unit is going to be a Colossi, which are basically huge units that have large sweeping lasers that can destroy everything. However, they can walk up and down cliffs, which is one of the only few units in the game that can, next to Reapers. There is a downside to the Colossi being so big, is because they can be shot from air units, however they cannot shoot the air units themselves. Speaking of air units, let's get to those. Phoenixes are the new replacements for the Scouts. Instead of just doing a crapload of damage to air units, they can also disable ground units, like so. It can lift up that ground unit, so like my other Phoenix can come in and shoot that unit. The unit in the air can't do anything, can't activate anything, it's just there. Next unit is the Void Ray, which basically makes large beams of energy that can destroy anything in its path. After a while, the damage increases incrementally, the beams get bigger, you blow stuff up faster. Carriers are a classic Starcraft unit that emphasize 8 different little interceptors instead of having their own weapons that deal damage to, swarm in and deal tons of damage to people. Still a very common tactic to win is to have a ton of carriers. However, there is a counter. Battleships can easily take them out with Yamato cannons, and Zerg have several units that do take them out. The last, but not least, is the Mothership. Now, a lot of people have touted the Mothership as probably the coolest, Protoss unit to date, and it is pretty cool. It's cool looking, but unfortunately, it's just a very over-glorified Arbiter. It's got stealth, it does a mass teleport, and it disables a ton of units in a spread range. Now, the mass teleport is like so. I could be, let's say, if I move over here, I can teleport all these units directly under my Mothership. Cool unit where you could dive into their base, teleport in your units past their line of defense, and you win. The other one is the fact that it can make a vortex, a black hole. Basically what I do is I've clicked this here. Every ground unit or air unit there is going to get sucked into the vortex for 30 seconds. After that 20 seconds. After that 20 seconds is up, they just get spat back out. Doesn't do any damage like it used to. They kind of nerfed it a little bit. But for the Mothership, it's really an overexpensive Arbiter, and I kind of wish they would have had some of the cooler abilities that they had in the original demo. Now, they do stealth ground stuff like buildings and such, so if you have a ton of cannons, you can put a Mothership over it. They can't target the cannons until they kill the Mothership, and by that time, you've probably blown up their force. That's going to be our Protoss introduction, and stay tuned for the next and final episode of our preview showcase, where I'm going to show off some of the new Zerg units and tell you some of the cool new stuff that has also been added from that point on.